Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game SO. Today we're going to be doing a series, Is That an Analog in Your Pocket? Are you just happy to see me? And today we're going to be talking about what I'd love to see from Analog and the Pocket line moving forward in the future. Because wildly enough, this thing released in December 2021 and it is almost 3 years old at this point in time. And while there's still a lot of fun to be had on Analog Pocket, and I play it at least a few times a week, it is one of those things where I want to look towards the future to see what a Pocket 2 could be like, what it could bring to the table over top the Analog Pocket OG, and basically just kind of presume what we'd love to see in the future. And by all means, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you love about Analogue Pocket and what you'd like to see improved in a new revision, because I do feel like, especially with the MiSTer FPGA handhelds coming soon, Analog might be very well thinking about doing a Pocket 2 if they were smart. Before we get too far involved, though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And Analog's definitely pushing the Pocket. Just recently you got the aluminum editions, which are definitely a premium over the standard plastic shell. I have talked to a few people that have purchased them, including Dorfus, sometimes sends in footage from the channel, and he absolutely loves his compared to the overall plastic shell that he had before. But again, this isn't giving us any new functionality. It is the same FPGA hardware inside, so you really aren't expanding on anything whatsoever. And while the Analogue Pocket has been an absolutely outstanding device as far as mobile gaming is concerned, giving us so many incredible cores, I feel like at this point in time it's going to need some new hardware soon, really to keep up, because for everything like save states and Game Boy Advance and being able to play all these games on the go with amazing screen technology, there are still things that you just can't play on Analogue Pocket, and they're never going to be able to, things that people really love playing over on the MiSTer FPGA side of things. Now on the plus side, all of the arcade cores from Hotega were coming to both Pocket as well as MiSTer FPGA, so there is a lot of fun to be had there. And of course we have so many amazing cores already, but those are also cores that could be day one cores on something like a Pocket 2 if they just expanded the FPGA to be larger within the same nuclear family of chips. Because something like Nintendo 64, one of the most popular MiSTer FPGA cores and a fun development process over like the last 18 months, is just something you're never going to be able to play on Analogue Pocket. And before you say anything, yes, I know Analogue 3D is coming, but people would love to play this stuff on the go, and even though Analogue has a console in development, I don't really think they'd be cannibalizing their own sales by having a Pocket 2 that would allow for these 3D consoles to function on something like the Pocket. These have been super popular in the last like 2 years or so. And again, I know Analogue 3D is coming out, but that is going to be a purely cartridge based system that is not going to allow you to be portable in any way, shape, or form. And with something like the Udon FPGA handheld on the MiSTer side of things coming soon, and it's going to allow you to play Nintendo 64 in FPGA in the palm of your hand, this definitely seems like something that Analogue would want to take a look at for the future, because that kind of is where the future of FPGA is, especially the analog side of things, these 3D consoles, because it seems like for the most part on the arcade core side of things, there is parity between Pocket and MiSTer FPGA, but that parity definitely is going to get a little less one-to-one when bigger, more complex arcade boards start coming to MiSTer. So trying to preface now to get a bigger FPGA in a handheld device called the Pocket 2 would really future-proof everything, because I think we're probably getting close-ish to the point where some of the arcade cores coming out may need more logic than something like Pocket has. And of course on the 3D side of things, you also have the Sega Saturn, something that Analogue isn't working on whatsoever as far as I know in a console design. Another awesome system, and the development on the MiSTer side of things is incredible, but pretty much every video I get a couple comments asking if this is going to be able to be ported to the Analogue Pocket, and that is just something that is not going to work. The Analogue Pocket has about 50% less logic than MiSTer FPGA does, and that was obviously by design because it was always intended to have more of these smaller consoles and handhelds on it. But it's one of those things, we know Analogue has the ability to do a CD-based console, but we've heard nothing on the Sega Saturn side of things. So again, it would be absolutely incredible to have something like a Pocket 2 with some analog controls and the ability to actually play Sega Saturn games and Nintendo 64 games and even PlayStation 1 games on the go, because pretty much all of Analogue's consoles are limited edition and they're all sold out, but the Pocket is something they keep making and keep producing, so I'd love to see them get into that 3D realm, because again, Udon and his company have been telling us all that they're making the AMOLED MiSTer FPGA handheld with full-size analog sticks, so Analogue would and should be competitive in this market as well, or else the reason to have something like a Pocket outside of original cart reading might go down a little bit more. And I'm sure people people over at Analogue do not want that separation to happen. They probably want to go toe-to-toe with MiSTer FPGA because it is the dominant FPGA on the market gaming wise. Now, as far as the actual Analogue Pocket in and of itself is concerned, I do think for a Pocket 2 potentially, they could really change everything up and make this a better handheld all around. And don't get me wrong, I love my Analogue Pocket the same way I love my MiSTer FPGA setup, so we should talk about what could be better, because this is not a perfect product and it can definitely get better in the future. And right off the top, the number one thing I'd love to see is a complete revamp and redesign of the controls. Honestly, the D-pad and the phase buttons are serviceable at best, and the shoulder buttons are very mushy, and over time, they have not been holding up very well for me. And honestly, using this D-pad for stuff like fighting games on the go, this really isn't something that's been working very well for me. Now, I did have a friend, Dorfus, who just got that aluminum model, and he said the D-pad feels slightly better, but those shoulders are still definitely imprecise, mushy, and don't really give much of a tactile feedback. So that's one thing I would love to see on a Pocket 2. Rethinking the part sourcing for the controls and getting them better, because again, these shoulder buttons 100% just do not do it for me on the feel portion of the controls. I just never really feel like they're working that well, and especially when you get over to stuff like CPS 1 and CPS 2 games that are using a 6-button setup, I would love to see pretty much every handheld go to a horizontal model and have 6 face buttons on the front, or even the option to change out a faceplate and do that. Because on the Analogue Arc-D, obviously a software emulation device that isn't perfect, the controls are absolutely outstanding, getting the Saturn-style D-pad, getting the 6 face buttons, and getting shoulder buttons that have a nice tactile click to them. I understand that a handheld isn't going to have the same amazing shoulders as something like a real controller, but if you gave me this versus the Analogue Pocket, I would take the internals of the Pocket, but I would take the layout and control scheme of the Analogue Arc-D any day of the week and twice on Sunday. So that is definitely something I think would work really well for a Pocket 2, going and giving it a different control scheme in a horizontal manner. That way your playability on these games is just going to be that much better, but you tell me down below how you feel about that. Secondarily, I just love the horizontal form factor because you could have the same size screen or slightly larger, but you would also have the ability to have less hand cramping, because for me, horizontal reigns supreme. The other thing I would really love to see, and I talked about this in a previous video I think last year, is a redesigned dock for a Pocket 2. The dock functionally works, it gets the job done, but as far as the actual fit and the ability to kind of torque that USB port on the bottom, I just think it needs a little bit more support, because you shouldn't just be able to pick up the Pocket and take the entire dock with you. I really do think they could go through that and improve it. And at this point in time, Analogue just shoved DAC support into a new dock, because the DAC is not available for sale. It is sold out. It seems to be the one product that Analogue just kind of wants to forget about, because they were promising DAC support on the Analogue Pocket like in spring of 2023, and we've seen no updates whatsoever. So maybe stop making these things external devices, give us a larger dock, hey, even charge $50 more. I think most people would be willing to pay, and give us an analog port out of the back so we can just hook these things up to our CRT televisions, because pretty much everyone loves playing these on CRT as well, and it's just one of those things that's always been missing from the Pocket as an official solution. Obviously we have the analogizer, and that works incredibly well. It just is one of those things that is an aftermarket product that you have to put into the cartridge port, but it does prove that the Analogue Pocket is 100% capable of outputting RGB video, S-video, composite component, whatever you want, and it does seem to be something that Analogue just completely ignores, that so many people are asking for, and so many people have already gone to a third-party solution. And don't get me wrong, the analogizer is an absolutely outstanding product, 10 out of 10, and I can't recommend it enough, but just give us a new, better designed dock that will allow us to have analog signals out, and I think everyone would be very happy. I definitely would be. Leave me a comment down below and tell me if you're an analog TV user or not. But that's what I would do with the Pocket 2. The Analogue Pocket's starting to feel a little bit long in the tooth. It can't do Nintendo 64, it can't do PlayStation 1, it can't do Sega Saturn. It definitely feels like it's due for maybe a revamp in 2025. But you tell me down below, what would you want to see out of an Analogue Pocket 2? Vertical or horizontal? Do you want analog sticks or not? What would you like to see Analogue do in the future? Because Pocket's been very successful for them, and you know full well they're probably going to upgrade it at some point in time. Short of that, we're done. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.